Here we go. And good evening and welcome to another edition of Sports Corner with Ralph Williams and Smokin Jim Frazier. Smokin Jim by telephone. Smokin Jim, how are you tonight?
Hey, I'm doing great, Ralph. I'm looking forward to another awesome show, buddy.
Oh, absolutely. And we have our guest coming up shortly. He's in the waiting room, Avi Greenwald. We're going to talk about the Florida sports and what's going on with, all the Florida teams, Jacksonville, Miami, and Tampa Bay. And, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, but we're going to ask Avi about that. Hey, Avi, isn't it sometimes, it's better to be lucky than good, because it seems like Miami kind of got lucky this week on Sunday. How you doing, Avi? Welcome back to the show. It's a Happy New Year to you.
Doing good. Happy New Year to you. Happy New Year to you, Jim, as well. Glad to be back.
That's great.
But I think the Dolphins got lucky. I believe that they deserved to be where they are, but they definitely have a high hill to climb for sure.
Oh, absolutely. I was hearing stories, and I don't know if it's true, but there were rumors going around that Sam Ross wanted to fire Mike McDaniel if they didn't make it to the playoffs. Is that true?
I think so. I'm not 100%, but I heard the rumors as well. I do believe that Mike McDaniel was on the hot seat there at the end of the season. He still may be. You never know.
Right. Smokin Jim, you have any questions for Avi?
No, I don't.
Okay, great. Okay, Avi, I wanted to ask you, I know it's a hard road to climb. What chances do you think Miami has of winning this game this week?
Well, I'll tell you, number one, Tua has got to play. He's got to be on the field if we have any chance in winning this game at all. I do believe offense can stay with them defensively, so I think they can keep it a close game. They're just going to have to be able to put some points on the board to be able to stay with them neck and neck. So we're going to need Tua. I do not think we can get the job done with Skylar Thompson. It's going to have to, Tua's going to have to come out, and they're going to have to play the same way they played the Bills both times this season. The last one was a loss, but you know what? It was a close game, and the Dolphins just going to have to pull up with the win this time.
What about the speaking of Florida teams, what about Tampa Bay? It seems like they kind of got lucky too. They won their division. They're playing Dallas. My friend Peter Blake down there in Tampa says that it's a good matchup. Do you believe that to be the case?
I think it's a great matchup. Okay. I do believe that Tampa Bay is another dark horse in the playoffs. I think that Tampa Bay, with the talent surrounding them, if they can bring that leadership that they have with Tom Brady and bring that team together like they look like they have been bringing themselves together as a team, I think they can surprise a lot of people and make a deep run into the playoffs. Absolutely.
What about, Tampa Bay as far as like coaching and game planning and everything? If Dallas, here's the theory I'm hearing. If Dallas were to lose, do you think Jerry Jones will fire Mike McCarthy?
It's a good question. I honestly do not think that he would. Now, I wouldn't. Nothing surprises me with Jerry Jones. So you never know. I to be honest, if I had to pick what may be going wrong with the Dallas Cowboys right now, I think it's the play out of Dak Prescott. I think he wasn't there early. I've never been the biggest fan of Dak Prescott. I'll be honest with you. He has a lot of things about his game that I just think do not make for a great quarterback. But they have a lot of talent on that team. If they can keep the running game going, they can have some success. But I would not be surprised if Dallas ends up losing this game to Tampa.
Watching Sports Corner with Ralph Williams, Smokin Jim Frazier. We're on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Twitter platforms. Some special announcements coming up later on in the show. Avi, now we're going to go to Jacksonville Jaguars. What do you think about them with Doug Peterson? I think they're going to be the ones that are going to take it in the AFC. What do you think?
I'd love to say that. I think it's very possible that the team is really coming together. Again, just like Tampa Bay, I think they're a dark horse. They are a sleeper in the playoffs. I think they could surprise a lot of teams, but I'd like to see them get past the Chargers first. Chargers are another good team. This is the playoffs. So they're all good teams in the playoffs. I would like to see the Jaguars, get past the Chargers. Then we could start talking going further in the playoffs. They got a lot of tough teams in here. But I definitely think the Jaguars, at their best, I think they can beat anyone in the AFC. So we'll see.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about some of these teams. And I think a lot of the teams in the this year, in the last maybe 5 games, I think the majority of the teams in the NFL, and I think you'll agree with me, pulled out wins that they needed to pull out and ended up improving over the years, over the course of the season, including the Steelers. What are your thoughts on all these teams?
The teams that are in the playoffs you're speaking about.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, the Bills, the Bengals, the Chiefs, right? Those are the top 3 teams. Those are the teams that everybody would expect to get there, right? So it's obviously you think which one of those teams are going to beat each other. Honestly, you got the Jaguars, Chargers, all these teams I think have the possibility of making it to the AFC Championship. I think they have the possibility of making it to the Super Bowl. The Dolphins have a high hill to climb. If Tua can play his best football and everybody can hit on all cylinders, the Dolphins can surprise a lot of people as well. That defense can hang with any other team in the conference. So it's very, very interesting.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I've seen their defense play when they played against the Steelers and some other things that happened this year. I watched their defense. I watched Melvin Ingram. He was a former Steeler and Kansas City Chief, and it was nice to see him getting in on some tackles because of what happened here. And, so it was great to see that go on as well. Who do you think for the Super Bowl? Or what's your prediction right now, Avi?
Yeah. If I were to make a biased selection, I'm probably still going to go. And you know what? I still think the Bengals are the team to beat right now. I really think they're the hottest team going in. Buffalo has some ups and downs. You really don't know with them. Kansas City obviously has Patrick Mahomes, but I just don't think they have the defense to contend deep in the playoffs this year. So if I had to pick, I'm going with the Cincinnati Bengals in the AFC. And in the NFC, I honestly think I'm going to go with Tampa Bay. I think they're going to surprise everybody. I think they can really sneak in. They've been there. They've done that. Why can't they do it, right? They just have to come all together as a team and make it happen. So if I had to pick, I'm going to go with Cincinnati and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for the Super Bowl. That's my pick, and I'm going to stick to it.
Smokin, Jim, you have any questions for Avi?
No, I kind of agree with most of the things that he's saying. I'm hoping that Tampa Bay, who's been playing really, really well, will continue that in the playoffs. And I wouldn't put it past Jerry Jones to fire Mike McCarthy, who's a Western Pennsylvania native, because Sean Payton is still out there.
Yes,
and I think that if he had his pick, he would pick Sean Payton over Mike McCarthy, who gets beat in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah, I believe that to be the case as well. I've heard some prediction, Minnesota and Buffalo. I've heard 49ers and 49ers and Cincinnati. I've heard all kinds of different scenarios here. I think, well, it could be. I'm not sure about Minnesota with their first-year coach. I mean, I know he's a great coach. I mean, he's done well this year, but he's a first-year coach, and sometimes first-year coaches like that are getting their feet wet. They get into these playoffs, and then they like don't know what to do. I mean, I saw Bill Cowher when he first coached his first playoff game. I saw, how he, in his first year took the team to the playoffs, then got there, and then just couldn't win. So, I mean, and that happens with a first-year coach. There's nothing wrong with that because that's great progress considering where Minnesota has been when Mike Zimmer was their head coach. So what I'm saying is I believe it could be Minnesota. And then again, it could be the 49ers. And then again, it could be anybody in that NFC. Like you said, Tampa Bay, sort of a dark horse. I think they can. But let's talk a little bit about Seattle. Who would have ever thought Seattle would be in the playoffs? I would have never thought that at all. And you know what? Seattle's winning the Russell Wilson trade because they traded him to Denver, and he didn't do anything in Denver, and he still hasn't. And now Seattle's in the playoffs with Geno Smith. I mean, let's talk a little bit about that. What do you think about that, Avi, in the NFC?
Well, I think that is amazing. I think Geno Smith has totally turned his career around. And I think if they're smart, they will try to grab him for some kind of a long-term commitment, maybe $20 million. If they can get him for about $20 million, I think that would be a huge plus. Because obviously your top quarterbacks in the league are getting about 45, 50 million. If you can get him for $20 million for about 4 more years, I think you're in a great spot. Look at what Geno has done. I mean, I think Geno, he might have been playing better quarterback, gotten better quarterback play out of him than you've had at a quarterback out of Seattle in the last 3 years, even when Russell was there. I think he's just getting real production out of Lockett and DK Metcalf this year. So I think they would be real smart.
He's definitely resurrected his career, and it was interesting to see him do that, considering when he was with the Jets, he really didn't do much at all. Smokin' Jim, you want to add anything to this?
No, I agree 100%. With what both you guys have been saying, man, I can't add anything to that.
All right. So anyway, Avi, do you in closing here, do you have anything that you want to throw out there to everybody?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's going to be one heck of a playoffs. I think the Dolphins, like I said, I think the key is if Tua can get on this play field, if he can get playing and he can play the way he's been playing without to worry about his durability, I think the Dolphins can make some noise. I really think if they can get past Buffalo, anything is possible.
Yeah, I think that could be the case if they do get past Buffalo. And you know what's interesting? Smokin' Jim and I had this discussion earlier in the year when Dwayne Haskins died. We talked about Mitch Trubisky's mindset. And I'm wondering if his team's mindset in regards to Damar Hamlin has kind of shook this team up a little bit, Buffalo. I know they've rallied. They won some games. I know Sean McDermott has them where they need to be. But you know what? That's a little bit of a situation that might hamper them to lose that game. And what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, you know what? You can definitely see it, obviously.
I'm sorry, everybody. Avi seems to have broken up a little bit here. I don't know what's going on. Seems like his live stream isn't. Oh, there we go. I got you. Well, I don't know what's going on with him. Okay. Smokin' Jimmy still there?
Yes, sir.
All right. We are watching Sports Corner. We have our guest, Avi Greenwald, who's frozen up here a little bit here on the live stream. And we're going to try to see if we can finish up with him. Anyway, if you hear me there, Avi, have a great night. Thank you for being on, talking football. And we'll talk with you another time. Have you come on again towards the draft. And we'll talk a little bit about the draft and maybe the end of the playoffs. Avi Greenwald from Miami area, covers the Miami Dolphins and Tampa and Bay and Jacksonville as well. Well, Smokin' Jim, let's dissect this Steelers season. Give me your opening, your opening statement in regards to the Steelers in this season. How do you define it?
Very disappointing. I think I was one of the few in the media that said talent-wise, this was a Super Bowl caliber talented team. My coach, Mike Tomlin, has never in his 16 years, he's been with Pittsburgh, has never developed a quarterback. If you look at some of the quarterbacks that they drafted, none of them ever developed, from Landry Jones to Joshua Dobbs. You just name Mason Rudolph, you just name them. And that was the problem this year. If they could have had a quarterback in there for the first 6 or 7 games, 8 games, the Pittsburgh Steelers would have won the majority of those games before they ultimately handed it off to Kenny Pickett. And maybe you wouldn't have had to even bring Kenny Pickett in this year until next year. So the window of opportunity, when you have this many players under contract that's Pro Bowl caliber, you never know what's going to happen down the road. but I have to label this season, missing the playoffs, as a very disappointing season for Pittsburgh Steelers.
Okay, we have Avi Greenwald back up here. Avi, what's your thoughts on how do you define the Steelers season this year as you see it?
You know what? If I were the Steeler fans, I'd walk away with a huge plus. You know what? Because I think you guys have found yourself a quarterback of the future, and you guys should be very proud and very happy to actually not have to go through the ups and downs that a lot of teams have had to find one. I think that you guys, you know what? What did you start off? 3-7. 3-7 this year,
right.
And you guys were one game away from the playoffs. And you guys had a quarterback carousel going on earlier in the season, and look where you are now. You know what? Just because it was Tomlin's first losing season, I think in 16, 17 years.
Yeah,
I think
it's a winning season to him, and he's been preaching that for a while. A lot of the players have spoken highly about the fact that after the bye week was when he spoke about winning games and getting in there and getting in the trenches. Actually, believe it or not, he went to the offensive coordinator, Matt Canada, and said, I think we need to run the football a little bit more, and they started doing that. And, it's interesting that it took that to get things started. My question is, and we'll start off with Smokin Jim, what do you think, Smokin Jim, about Matt Canada? Do you think he'll be back, or do you think we have to wait and see what Tomlin's going to do?
Well, I said it all along. I think I was the first one in the media that said that I pretty much would guarantee that Matt Canada would be back. Everybody thought I was crazy. From a business standpoint, they almost could not get rid of Matt Canada because, coaches' salaries are guaranteed. They allowed Matt Canada not only to be the offensive coordinator, but pick all the offensive coaches on that staff. Those are hand-picked coaches that Matt Canada pretty much hired. So if you get rid of Matt Canada, you're going to have to get rid of all the rest of the coaches that share his same philosophy. And to do that, Art Rooney would have to pay all those coaches because they will not be sought after in the National Football League.
Oh, absolutely.
There's not one coach on that offense that could get another NFL coaching job that we can guarantee to have another NFL coaching job next year. So at least for the next year or two, they're paying two offensive coordinators, 2 wide receiver coaches, 2 offensive line coaches. So I didn't think Matt Canada was going to get fired.
Yeah, I like you said, Smokin Jim, and I think all of you agree with me. We had our offensive line improved just a little bit this year, but we had a new coach, Pat Meyer. He came from Carolina. It was nice to see him and heavily involved. Some of the offensive linemen have said, many times in some interviews, thanks to Pat Meyer, we're improved players this year. And despite Dan Moore, who holds and has false starts and all that all the time, other than him and maybe that Kevin Dotson, I think that the offensive line did pretty well. Ogafart, he was added as usual. I think they overpaid for him. And, but James Daniels, he was there when he needed to be if he wasn't running, if he wasn't an illegal man downfield every other game. So, other than that, I think it's been a pretty decent season. Mason Cole, he was a stalwart at center. And, so, Avi, what are your thoughts about the offensive performance for the Steelers toward the second part of the season?
I thought it was impressive, to be honest, with what they had going on all season. Again, I think them approaching the running game a little bit more, trying to focus on getting Najee Harris the ball. I think next year the Steelers they're gonna be doing a lot better. I can guarantee you. I guarantee you that the Steelers will make the playoffs next year, guaranteed. I think what they did by freeing up some people and kind of getting some chemistry going with their wide receiving core, and like I just mentioned, Kenny Pickett, you guys got a quarterback of the future. That guy he's serious, and I really think that they can only improve from here, and they look to be going out really looking really good at the end of the season. So if they're going to be improving, it can only get better, right? So we'll see what happens.
Avi, I want to thank you for being part of this program. Sorry about the technical issues that that were going on. I appreciate you. Happy New Year, and we'll see you later on this year. I'm
as
going to be in
well.
touch with you about maybe perhaps right before the draft. We'll talk about some draft stuff.
Sounds
I'm gonna
good.
have a draft show. I'll invite you on it. I'm going to have a big panel this year. So, we'll have a draft show here on Sports Corner. Okay.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome, Avi. Anytime, buddy. And I'll be in touch with you. Okay. Thank you.
Sounds good.
Smokin,
Take it
Jim,
easy,
you have
Jim.
anything to say to Avi?
Hey, always good hearing your insights, my man.
Take it easy, Jim.
All right. Yep. He said, take it easy there, Smokin' Jim. Avi Greenwald, Miami, Florida, Miami sports reporter, and also reports to Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Jacksonville Jaguars, and a whole lot more right here. Smokin' Jim, let's get back to the Steelers. What are your thoughts on the press conference Mike Tomlin had yesterday? And a reporter asked him this question: Are you thinking about resigning? And he actually answered that question by saying, as of right now, no. What do you think about that?
Well, I didn't hear that part. I'm glad you told me that, but I thought the press conference was a bunch of BS. You know what I mean? It was an opportunity for him not to answer any questions he didn't want to.
Well, he doesn't anyway.
Yeah, he doesn't anyway. You know, the day after his mindset was on the playoffs, not this other stuff. Come on, man. You know, you've been doing this for 15, 16 years. You know what I mean? You know what time it is. You know what you're going to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Don't feed us all this malarkey, man. Listen, it's always good to hear. I'm not sure when Art Rooney II will have his press conference. He usually does an end of year evaluation where he tries to tell the team what to do, like he knows football.
Was never a good lawyer, and now he's running a football team.
Exactly, man.
Your Honor, the defense rests.
Hey, no doubt about it. But the first change I would make is I would can Terrell Austin and promote Flores to offensive coordinator. The reason I say that is this. I think that Flores is only getting a token interview with Cleveland. You got to interview a black candidate anyhow. But if Cleveland is serious or their team's serious and hiring Flores as a defensive coordinator, then I'm gonna make him my defensive coordinator and can Terrell Austin, and it's because of this reason. I believe the Steelers in the last two games was very effective going to a six-man defensive line to stop the run. I've never seen that in Tomlin's tenure. I've never seen that since Terrell Austin has been there. So I have to believe that is something that was implemented by Flores, who by all accounts around the league has been known as being a pretty sharp defensive mind. So that's the guy that I want as my defensive coordinator. I don't want to lose him to another team.
Oh, no, I don't think that the Steelers would give the Cleveland Browns their request because of the fact that they're in the AFC North. I don't believe that they're going to, and they may do this. I was fine with Terrell Austin being the defensive backs coach when he was there with Tom Bradley a few years ago. I didn't have no issues with that. But, when they bumped him up to defensive coordinator and then bring in Brian Flores, too much of that goes on in the Mike Tomlin era here, Smokin' Jim, and I think you'll agree with me. Too many of the assistant to the assistant to the assistant, and you need three assistants to do one job. I believe that Brian Flores is a very good defensive mind and is a great defensive coordinator. I don't think he's going to be he'll be a head coach maybe down the road sometime, but I don't think he'll be a head coach lately. And if the Steelers are smart, like you said, they'll sign him and they'll make sure that they keep him in somehow, some way. And I agree with you about Terrell Austin. I don't think, I've heard good stories about Terrell Austin, But if you take a look at his record, he's blown it in some of the places he's been. You know what I'm saying? So I don't think that he's that good, and I think he was just bumped up, just like when they bumped up, when they bumped up some guys back in the, in the early years of Mike Tomlin's career. They bumped some guys up just to appease them, and you can't do stuff like that. You have to basically take a look at your talent. And I like Brian Flores. I think he needs to be defensive coordinator. He needs to be on the sidelines, not up in the booth. I have an issue with that. And, so I don't know what the purpose of that was or is. And, anyway, let's talk about the game against Cleveland. The typical Cleveland Browns, they lose to us again. And, they their defense, and I like some of the play calling from Matt Canada. Their defense kind of looked a little bit confused, and they were having some issues stopping the running game. I think our offensive line didn't do a bad job in this game, being that it was the final game. The Steelers did what they had to do. They had to win in order to stay in place, but they had to wait for others. Every time the Steelers has to wait for somebody to do something, they lose it. What do you think about this?
Well, I couldn't understand what Cleveland was really doing. I mean, Chubb was averaging 6.4 yards a carry, and they kept throwing the football, which I couldn't understand that.
Right.
We were scared. It almost reminds me of when Bill Belichick took over the head coaching job at Cleveland. We were scared to death of Metcalf. Metcalf was the Steeler killer, and he would bench Metcalf against the Steelers and play some of the bigger backs, And
right.
I couldn't understand that, and that's what the coach for Cleveland did yesterday. Chubbs is a heck of a running back, and he did well catching the ball out of the backfield too yesterday. And they got two running backs in Cleveland. And they just kept throwing the football, and I couldn't understand their philosophy, why they were doing that.
Well, like I've said many times, Smokin' Jim, if you go with what works, if you're running the football against the Steelers, and the run defense isn't all that great these days, if you're running the football against the Steelers and you're successful, what do, Smokin' Jim? You keep on running the football until they can stop it. But you see, Kevin Stefanski didn't do that. And here's another interesting point, and I made this point last year, and I've said this many times. Some of these offensive coaches, they need to coach the game and let their coordinator do their job. Alex Van Pelt's their offensive coordinator. Stefanski calls all the plays. You know what? Why be an offensive coordinator or have a guy there like Alex Van Pelt if you're not going to let him call the plays and you got Stefanski doing it all? And you know what? That happened at Pitt with Walt, with Not My Fault Walt, and some other, coaches I've seen over the years. And I think you'll agree with me on this, that some of these coaches like that, Arthur Smith down in the Falcons, be the coach, be the head coach. If you want to put your thumbprint or your input into your offensive system, that's fine. But let the offensive coordinator do his job and don't have him there as a de facto. Okay? Do you see what, and I think that's what happens too much, Smokin' Jim. What do you think about that?
That's a very good point. And I tell you what, I forget that Alex Van Pelt was their offensive coordinator, and he's a good one.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. And I don't know how he's putting up with Kevin Stefanski. I was told he was going to leave after last year, but I guess they worked out something. And if you remember correctly, take a look at the draft. Kevin Stefanski was by himself. His scouting department and all the people that work in that thing and the GM, they were all at the Cleveland office. He was at home on his computer.
Yeah,
okay?
I remember that.
Remember that? Okay,
yeah.
So there has to be a problem here when your head coach is at home and not sitting there with the scouts. At least the Steelers aren't Rooney II, Mike Tomlin. Everybody's there. You see what I mean? In most of these teams, that's the way it is. But in Cleveland, Stefanski, he was sitting at home on his computer, with the draft and everything, and he wasn't even with his scouting staff or nothing. There has to be a problem there. And the Cleveland Browns are going to continue to be the Cleveland Browns if whatever's going on there doesn't stop. Because Stefanski, like I told you last year, they were predicted to go to the Super Bowl. Everybody thought Cleveland was the best thing since sliced bread. And then what happened was they ended up with egg on their face, and Stefanski ended up with egg on his face. He acted like his doo-doo didn't stink, and then he went ahead and he tried to go, oh, yeah, we're the big, great Cleveland Browns. We're predicted to go to the Super Bowl, and you blew it. So, and then here we are again. They blew it again and had a last place finish this season. And, the Deshaun Watson drama, that all, played into it, and things like that. Oh, by the way, I heard Deshaun Watson was at a hotel with some women right before the Cleveland plane took off, and it took off without him, and they left him behind.
Are you serious?
No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, Peter, I wouldn't doubt it, man. Oh, yeah.
So anyway, did you hear the story about Bernie Kosar? And I sent you the story about Bernie Kosar right before the Steelers started the game. He was fired for betting at the sportsbook, and I'm surprised, Smokin' Jim. Didn't you see him there?
No, I didn't see.
Yeah, he was fired for betting on NFL games at the sportsbook. Now, I don't know if he was at the Rivers Sportsbook, but I do know he was busted, and he got caught, and he got fired right before the Steeler game. So, Bernie Kosar, who is a legend in Cleveland, he did, he was an adequate quarterback there. I mean, he wasn't, he's a Hall of Famer. But, he basically, stuck it, went ahead and bet on football. And you know how that goes in the NFL, but he got busted and he got fired. It's in the contract. It's in his contract. All the Cleveland Brown employees and NFL employees, I guess, you're not allowed to bet on the NFL, in football. And he went ahead and did that.
Wow.
And, it's sad to hear, but that's what happened. And Deshaun Watson was with them too, and they were trying to score on the cocktail waitresses at the casino. So Deshaun Watson says, "Hey Bernie, come on out of the sports book. I'll show you some stuff." Oh my! I'm in a better mood tonight, Smokin' Jim. We didn't have to cancel the show because I was sick last week. You know what I mean? So. But anyway, let's talk about, we're still talking about more of the Steelers here. The offense did what it had to do. The offensive line, you were right about Pat Meyer. What do you think about the offensive line? What do you think that they did this year? And could they have made some changes, like maybe take Dan Moore out of there, put in Jesse Davis or Trent Scott, who they traded draft picks for, and Trent Scott came with Pat Meyer as a free agent? What do you think about this?
Well, I thought I would have rated the offensive line fairly well. I thought that Pat did a great job as the offensive line coach. The players, everybody gave him credit except for Coach Tomlin. So I don't understand that. Here's how good I feel about the offensive line. Is in the first round, and I said this tonight on Pittsburgh Sports Line with your friend Al Levine, the talking machine.
Yeah, Al Levine. Happy New Year to him. How's he doing, by the way?
He's doing great, man.
That's
but I said on the show that in the first round, I would draft a big tight end that can catch and block. Like
I heard you say that. Yeah, I watched the show.
Michael Meyer for Notre Dame. 270-pound tight end. I think that I think going to having a package, and they do have packages now for two tight end offense, and that helps in your blocking game. That helps your quarterback in the passing game because they're big targets that can catch. Freiermuth has a history of being injured, and I just think that. A big athletic tight end that not only can block, that enjoys blocking, would be a great benefit to help your offensive line out. and to help your young quarterback out. So that's what I would do.
What was your thoughts this year on? We finally got to see Derek Watt. Every time he was in the game, he scored a touchdown. He always did what needed to be done, got the first down, in short yardage. What do you think this year about Derek Watt?
Well, I think there's a value with him in the special teams. I think his contract is way overpriced, but that's because of who his brother is. But if you're going to do brothers, then Terrell Edmonds' brother is a great linebacker, middle linebacker for the Buffalo Bills.
He is.
He's a free agent, and I would bring him in if you're going to do brothers. You know what I mean?
Oh, don't forget about Trey. He's a running back. Don't forget about Trey Edmonds.
We don't want him anymore. But we would love to have. But the Steelers need a middle linebacker. I think they can make the pitch. Now I don't know if Buffalo would franchise him or what, or how much money they have under the salary cap. But it could be a great pitch. Hey, listen, your parents don't have to split up where they're going to the games. They can all come to Pittsburgh and watch both brothers play. That's the only reason I would bring back Terrell Edmonds. Everybody says he had a great season. This guy had 40 tackles, no interceptions, no forced fumbles. I mean, he plays the same position that Donnie Shell played, that Carnell Lake played, and that Troy Polamalu played. And the local media around here want to shove down our throat that Terrell Edmonds had a good season because he had a couple of sacks. You know what I mean? He did not have a good season. He's a liability back there. And, so we really fall in love with mediocrity here in this town. You got to be a great player to play strong safety for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he's not a great player.
Right. I call Mike Tomlin mediocre Mike because everything that the Steelers do anymore is mediocre. And, the standard is the standard, and now the standard is mediocre. It doesn't seem like, and I've said this many times, and I've been, slapped in the face by some of our reporter friends and some friends that we have down at Steeler offices and things like that, and guys in the media have said to me that I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. Let me ask you this. If you're the owner of a team, of an NFL team, what do you want the most?
Say that again.
If you're an owner of an NFL football franchise, what is the thing that you want the most?
I would definitely want a championship.
Exactly. Super Bowl. Now, Bill Cowher, I've always heard some of his sayings over the years. And one of the things he said was, we're in business here to win championships and go to the Super Bowl. And if you're not in that kind of business, you don't need to be in the NFL. I don't think Mike Tomlin don't need to be in the NFL. And Art Rooney II should sell his share because it sounds to me like they just want to be mediocre. I don't think they want that Art II. And you know what? I'm going to continue to say this because I'm looking like I'm right here, Smokin' Jim, because it doesn't appear to me that Art II wants to win a Super Bowl. It appears that to be that case. And you know what's interesting? He may not even get a Super Bowl as an owner. I mean, his dad got 1 or 2, and his grandfather got 4. So what I'm saying is, here we are. I don't know if Art Rooney, the II will get one because of mediocre Mike. And that's just a simple fact that, is here. And here's what puzzles me. The fans out here even agree with mediocre Mike. They think that this is the best thing since sliced bread. 9-8. Oh, we're happy with that. Oh, everybody did this. Oh, Pickett did that. Oh, this, that, and whatever. I don't think it was a successful season. They didn't go to Super Bowl. Okay? To me, that is what a successful season is all about. What do you think, Smokin' Jim?
Well, listen, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think the last time we won a Super Bowl was the 2008 season.
Yeah.
That's like 13 years ago. I said right after they got rid of Santonio Holmes, I announced that there's a curse on this football team. They'll never win another Super Bowl, and they haven't.
Right.
Now, not only when they make playoff games, I think there's 3 playoff wins in the last 10, 12 years or whatever that record is.
Right.
Yeah, this team is just mediocre every year. I think anybody else would have been fired.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's like they're celebrating a really easy week schedule, and they're celebrating because the Steelers did not have a losing season. I mean, how far have we fallen?
We've fallen. And then I argue all the time, Smokin' Jim, with my media friends nationally. Oh, Mike Tomlin's one of the best coaches in the NFL. Oh, Mike Tomlin this. Oh, Mike Tomlin that. And you know what? What Kool-Aid are you drinking? I know you're not here to see what we see. Okay.
Right.
And we see mediocrity. But these other people that are most of the national reporters and friends that I have that have shows that I've been invited on, we've had this argument. Oh, Mike Tomlin's a great guy. Oh, I don't want to hear how great of a coach Mike Tomlin is when you don't win the Super Bowl.
Right.
Okay. Bill Belichick is a great coach because he's won a lot of Super Bowls. He's lost some too, but he's won more than he's lost. Okay. All right. And here we are sitting here going, oh, 9-8 is great. And that bothers me. It bothers me from a fan perspective. It bothers me from an ownership perspective. And then it bothers me from how some of these reporters and our other fellow media colleagues out there with their talk shows going on and on about how great 9-8 is. Okay. And I think you'll agree with me with all this, Smokin' Jim, that's not the case. I mean, all right, let's wrap up the Steeler talk. We're going into some NFL coaching firings and interviews and things. Futures contracts today: Jamarcus Bradley, wide receiver; Duke Dawson, defensive back; William Dunkel, offensive line. He's been around preseason. He'll come in for preseason, and then they'll cut him at the end of preseason or something. He's one of them guys. Amiki Ogobu, linebacker. He's been off and on the practice squad. Even was on the roster, I think, for a minute there. Jason Hunley, running back. Ryan McCullum, he's a center. He played most of the preseason, but they signed these guys today to futures contracts. Hey, my favorite player, Master Teague, the running back. Remember him? Master Teague.
Yeah. Ohio State.
Yeah. And then because of his father, guess who's back? Cody White.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, his father's on the scouting staff now. So, I mean, yeah. Rodney Williams, a tight end. There you go. Tight end Rodney Williams might be able to do a little bit better here. So anyway, and then also we're going to your buddy Devin Bush not coming back. He was benched in the last few games. I know you said it. I agreed with you. He was a bum. He was a bust. And Mike Tomlin, and I said this a few shows ago, and I'll say it again. There's these bums that Tomlin likes, and he was one of them. I don't know what I mean. I know he was trying to give him the benefit of the doubt because he was a first-round draft pick, and he got that knee surgery and everything else. But you know what it is in the NFL these days. If you don't produce, you're gone. But even first-round draft picks are even getting traded and getting cut from teams that they think are bust. But not Mike Tomlin and not the Steelers. And, Cam Hayward's contract's up. What do you think he's going to do? You think he's going to retire? Or you think he's going to come back with the Steelers a few more years?
Man, he played well this year. So I think he'll definitely I didn't know his contract was up, but if they can come up with a number that makes sense, I think they'll bring him back because they haven't developed anybody else on the defensive line.
No, they haven't. Hey,
so you almost got to bring him back.
Hey, you got my messenger the other night. Your buddy there, Isaiah Buggs, plays for Detroit.
Wow, he's still in the league. Huh?
Yeah, he's still. Wow. Hey, he was starting the defensive line, Isaiah bugs
Wow.
me. He's resurrecting his career up in Detroit, just like Sean, what's his name, Saladin or whatever his name was. That was the what was he, the coffee runner for Mike Munchak? You called him or whatever. So anyway, Terrell Edmonds, we talked about him. Malik Reed, I think he's gone, and I think Tyson Alualu's done. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a shame because the career it ended almost overnight for Tyson. A couple years ago he was really playing well, and then he just didn't have it anymore this year, and you could see it. And it used some guys lose it gradually, and then some guys lose it overnight. Like a J.J. Watt and Tyson Alualu. So,
right.
Yeah, he's done.
Okay, let's get into. I have some sad news. 6 months into the death of former Steeler wide receiver Charles Johnson, the autopsy was finally released today by the medical examiner, and he died of a suicide. He overdosed on drugs.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, that was released today. Charles Johnson, former Steeler wide receiver. My condolences to his family. He died about 6 months ago. They finally released the autopsy report that he died of suicide, of overdosing on drugs. So
now he OD'd or he suicide?
He suicide. He OD'd. He killed himself with it. He OD'd.
He killed.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Wow. Wow.
Yeah. Sad news in the front of former Steeler. Okay.
Yeah, he was a cool dude too, man.
Yeah,
he was a cool dude.
Oh
man.
yeah. He was good when he was here. I think he did adequate. I mean, Cordell threw to him all the time.
They were great together. They were great together in Colorado. I tell you.
Yes, they were. Yes, great chemistry.
Well, let me ask you this question. Ralph. I'm not sure what your feelings are in Kenny Pickett. I would be interested in your feelings, but I keep hearing, even the guest that you had on tonight from Miami keeps telling me that we got a great quarterback. In 13 games, he threw 7 touchdown passes. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what everybody's seeing that they're automatically, just penciling in that
right.
We don't have to look for a quarterback anymore. We're set for the next 20 years. What do you think?
I think Kenny Pickett's overhyped. I think Kenny Pickett was a product of a good offensive system, of Mark Whipple's system. Okay, if you noticed when he played at Pitt, he went through 3-4 coordinators, and then finally he got some chemistry going with Mark Whipple. And Mark Whipple's offense was that, the cute stuff, throw to all these passes. The running game was non-existent at times for Pitt. He threw for 400 yards or 300 yards or whatever all the time. It fit him. Okay. He comes to Pittsburgh, Matt Canada's offense. He has to study it. He's a rookie and everything else. Okay. It's a product of a system. And I think if you bring in the offensive coordinator that's the system like Whipple's would work, I think he would be a better quarterback. I just think that this current system with Matt Canada is not going to be workable for him. And now if you're running a football, Smokin' Jim, all he has to do is manage the game. If you can run the football, and he'll make himself look good that way. I'm not sold on him as a franchise quarterback either. And I agree with some things Claudio says, and I agree with some things some others say. And again, here we are, and I'm not criticizing my national friends, but here we are. We got these national guys. You got the guys on NFL Network talking about how great Kenny Pickett is. Okay? Kenny Pickett is not – the only reason I believe that the Steelers took Kenny Pickett was they had to because of the Dwayne Haskins death. I think that they wouldn't have went that way if Dwayne Haskins didn't die. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right? Because they had Dwayne Haskins, who actually could have been a good quarterback with the Steelers if given the opportunity. They could have kept Mason Rudolph, and then they still could have drafted Kenny Pickett in a later round, like Claudio always says, in a late 2 or 3 or 4 rounds. I think he still would have been there. I don't think he was that good anyway. You see, he was a product of a good system. Mark Whipple had a good system, okay? So I think that's what he was the product of, and Mark Whipple's coaching as a quarterback's coach as well. Look how good he did with Ben when Whipple was here, okay? And stuff like that. So that's what I think about Kenny Pickett.
Well, I tell you what, very well said. And something else that I've not heard on any other network, and you're the first one that said it, is that how is Buffalo going to react after the Damar Hamlin? Because I don't think Buffalo played that well this past weekend.
Right.
And who knows how that's going to affect them moving forward. And you're the first one to say that.
Because we discussed the Dwayne Haskins thing with Trubisky. Remember that?
Yeah.
And then I was on Peter Blake's show in Tampa, and Harry the Greek was on with him, and he was going on and on about how Trubisky's this great quarterback because he reports for Chicago. And he knows about Trubisky when he was in Chicago. And he goes, oh, the Steelers got a gem and all this and that. And I don't know what happened to him this year. I said, Harry, I'll tell you what happened. His head's not screwed on straight because of the Haskins death. And then he finally realized that it was because of the Dwayne Haskins death. And you were the one that said it, and so did I. And we both said the same thing. And that's why we work so well together on this program and on other shows. Sir. Because we agree on a lot of things, but we also have had our differences too. But what I'm saying is that here we are. If that's the situation there, I think that the Damar Hamlin thing might get in their heads a little bit, and I think the playoffs they might lose.
Wow.
It could happen. You know what it is? Again, another Bill Cowher thing. This is the National Football League, and anything can happen. Okay. Remember when Jimmy Johnson was the coach of the Dallas Cry Boys? I call them the Cry Boys. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Remember when he was the coach and they went to the playoffs and they were 7-9 and they won a couple games and went to the championship game that year? You remember that?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything can happen with Dallas. Anything, or I'm sorry, Tampa Bay. Anything can happen with Jacksonville. Anything can happen with Miami. Okay. All right, so we'll see what Mike McDaniel was made of. First-year coach in the playoffs. Well, of course, Doug Peterson, he's been to the playoffs. He's been to the Super Bowl. So I'm going to put Doug Peterson away from that talk. He's not a first-year head coach. He's just coming in as a first-year head coach for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And, he's been to the Super Bowl with both Kansas City and with the Eagles. So what I'm saying is somebody like Mike McDaniel to do the job he's done in Miami, and for Sam Ross to come out and say that if we didn't go to the playoffs, Mike McDaniel was fired, there's something wrong down there.
I agree.
Okay. And I don't care what anyone thinks or says. There is a problem with the ownership there. If you're going to do that, look at Houston. Look, Lovie Smith got fired again. They fire a coach after one season again. Okay. And here we are. Now they need another coach. Now let me ask you this, Smokin' Jim. You're a well-known. I don't care who you are. Would you coach there?
No way.
Okay. Would you? I wouldn't coach there at all. You could pay me double and I wouldn't coach there. Why would I want to put up with that? You see what I'm saying? That job is not going to get filled by anybody great. They're going to have to get a real good coordinator type. And I'll tell you who some of the candidates are, because I got that here too, for some of the candidates for some of these jobs. And you're not going to believe it. But what I'm saying is they're not going to get a Sean Payton. They're not going to get even a Frank Reich or anybody like that, because nobody wants a coach there. When, they fired Dave Cawley last year, and Dave Cawley was only there one season, and Lovie Smith was there this year. So I don't know what they're thinking of. You know what? If I'm the Steelers, I would have Brian Flores be defensive coordinator and bring in Lovie Smith as an assistant to the assistant at the movie theater. Okay, or whatever. Hey, Lovie Smith's a good defensive mind. I mean, he really is. He I don't know what happened to him. He did well in Chicago. Went to Tampa. You know what I mean? Then went to college.
Don't forget now that Lovie Smith and Coach Tomlin coached together at Tampa Bay.
Yes, exactly.
Lovie was on that Tony Dungy staff.
Yes, exactly. Right. Yep, you're right. And then he went to college. He didn't do well at all at Illinois, and then he comes back to the NFL and soils the bed. So I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, but that's not right. I have the schedule here for next year for the Steelers, Smokin' Jim. We play our usual AFC teams at home. We have Arizona at home this year. We have Green Bay, Jacksonville, New England, San Francisco, and Tennessee Titans. That's our home games next year. Then our away games are the usual AFC teams. Guess where we're playing at? We're playing the Texans. And then Indianapolis, the Raiders in Las Vegas. We do a lot of West Coast this year. The Vegas, the Rams, and the Seattle Seahawks. I guess the NFL is punishing us because we didn't travel to the West Coast or didn't go outside the East Coast all this year. You know what I mean? You know, so. But anyway, all right, let's talk about some of these coaching firings. Cliff Kingsbury fired. Lovie Smith fired, we just talked about. Nathaniel Hackett, Matt Rule, and Frank Reich. Those are the teams that fired their coaches. And some of the guys who they are planning on hiring, Carolina is talking to Jim Caldwell, Ken Dorsey, Bills offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson, Lions offensive coordinator, Frank Reich, Shane Steichen, Eagles offensive coordinator, Mike Kafka, Giants offensive coordinator. They've requested and scheduled interviews with Frank Reich, and Steve Wilkes will get a scheduled interview. What's your thoughts on that list, Smokin' Jim, for Carolina?
Well, there's a lot of. I heard you mention a lot of black coaches. I gotta think they're token interviews. You know, you gotta hire. You gotta interview a minority to get it out of the way.
Right.
I think an ideal situation. If I'm Carolina, I'm hiring Wilkes. I thought he did a good job at Carolina. I thought he got the respect of the team. I thought he turned some things around. I like the way the team was playing under him.
Yes.
And he has some head coaching experience. So
yeah, Bill Cowher said that. He endorsed him. He said Bill Cowher endorses you. You know you're doing something right. I mean, he endorsed Steve Wilkes. He said he should be a head coach again. Okay, Cleveland Browns, they fired defensive coordinator Joe Wood. They're looking at Sean Dicey from Seattle's Seahawks associate head coach for defense. They've requested an interview. Brian Flores, they requested. And Jarrett Mayo, Patriots linebackers coach. What's your thoughts on Cleveland Browns and their defensive coordinator search?
Wow. There's some talent on that defense, man. I think that, they got a pretty good defensive line. Myles Garrett is great, and they got some good defensive backs. And so I think that it's a job that would interest an outstanding defensive coordinator. I don't know how it is to work with the head coach. That's the thing. That's the thing you got to look.
I'm telling you.
When everything, Do
you see his face when he's on the field, Smokin' Jim? He looks disgusted. He looks like he's in a bad mood all the time, Stefanski. He doesn't look like he's easy to work with. And I heard some stories, because I got some friends up in Michigan that report for Michigan up there, the Detroit Lions and all the Michigan teams, Minnesota and all that. They said he was difficult to work for when he worked with Mike Zimmer in Minnesota when he was offensive coordinator there. So, for somebody to come out and say that means he's going to be difficult to work with. I told you, look at Alex Van Pelt. It was so bad that when Mark Whipple left last year, Alex Van Pelt and Pratt Narduzzi sat down. He was willing to go to Pitt and take a step down. That's how bad this got.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
All right. Denver Broncos. Now, Denver has a really good list here. The defensive coordinator for the Broncos is scheduled. I guess this is the guy that took over for Nathaniel Hackett. Ojiro Evero. Jim Harbaugh completed. They've already interviewed him. Raheem Morris. They're requesting Raheem Morris is going to get back into being a head coach, I guess. When they want to interview him, he's the Rams defensive coordinator. Sean Payton, Dan Quinn, and DeMarco Ryan, the 49ers defensive coordinator. What's your thought on that list for the Broncos?
I think the only one that appeals to me for that organization would be a Sean Payton. You have to bring in you got Russell Wilson on a guaranteed contract, you
Right.
have to have an established offensive coach to come in there and get that offense going. You can't bring a defense in there, this or that. You got to get that offense going because you're stuck with the quarterback, and you have to build all the pieces around him and build a system that is quarterback friendly, that they're going to get up and going. Now, I think Russell Wilson this past week threw 3 touchdown passes. In the last few games he played, he's been playing a little bit better.
Yes.
But you cannot bring in a defensive coordinator and neglect the offense, because the fan base, if that offense plays as poorly as it did again next year as it did this year, the fan base is not going to put up with it. And you can't get rid of the quarterback because he's guaranteed money.
Yeah, they have a new ownership group there who bought the team, I think, about a year ago, and that was the purpose, was to start winning, bringing in Russell Wilson. They brought the wrong guy in as the head coach, Nathaniel Hackett. I've said this many times. Some people can be coordinators and some people can be head coaches. Nathaniel Hackett obviously proved me right. He was not a good head coach. So it was so bad they got rid of him in the middle of the season. Now, I didn't even look at this list, Smokin' Jim, and I already said it, didn't I? The Houston Texans, guess what? It's all offensive and defensive coordinators that are in the league, because nobody with a name is going to go down there. Okay. So this is Ajiro Evero, the Broncos defensive coordinator, Jonathan Gannon, Eagles defensive coordinator, Ben Johnson, Lions offensive coordinator, Mike Kafka, Giants offensive coordinator, D'Amico Ryans, 49ers defensive coordinator, and Shane Steichen, Eagles offensive coordinator. Looks like they want to talk to both of the Eagle coordinators. So if you're one of them coordinator guys and you want to get your feet wet in the NFL, I guess the Texans probably would be your job, wouldn't you think?
Yeah. It may only last a year, but you get your feet wet.
At least you get experience. You can put it on your resume. You're watching Sports Corner here on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Twitter. I'm Ralph Williams. My co-host is Smokin' Jim Frazier by telephone. We're here every Tuesday night, 8:30 p.m. We're going over all the coaching candidates for the different teams who have vacancies. And the Indianapolis Colts, they want to talk to Aaron Glenn, Lions defensive coordinator, that Evero guy from Broncos again, Ben Johnson again, Raheem Morris again, Jeff Saturday. They're actually going to interview him again or whatever. And this Shane Steichen again from the Eagles. The Colts, what do you think?
Jeff Saturday.
I think he got thrown into something he couldn't handle this year. Maybe another year of coaching might help him. And if he can get some good assistants and bring them in, I think that would be great. That would at least help him. Somebody like that, you need to have good assistants behind you as well. Tennessee Titans. Now, I heard some stories here that Mike Vrabel almost got fired, and almost only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. But anyway, they did fire their general manager, or he stepped down. He didn't get fired. He stepped down. The owner likes Mike Vrabel. So here I have a list here. Malik Boyd, Bills Senior Director of Pro Personnel for their GM job. Rand Carlton, 49ers Director of Player Personnel. Glenn Cook from the Browns. Really? Oh, my. Ryan Cowden, Titans VP. He's already in the system. Ian Cunningham, Bears Assistant General Manager. Quentin Harris, Cardinals VP of Player Personnel. There's a big shakeup down there. I'll go over that in a few. Adam Peters, 49ers Assistant. What do you think about the GM job in Tennessee? Do you think the new GM keeps Mike Vrabel because the owner likes him, or what do you think?
I don't know. I think it's if I'm the general manager, and Mike Vrabel don't fit my system of what I look forward in the football. Mike Vrabel is a defensive-minded coach. He's a run-orientated coach, and there's not that many general managers that'll support that philosophy. I like it. I think you can win with it. Mike has proven he's won some, especially when Henry is healthy. But there's very few people in the National Football League. You're very well in the minority. The think run first system. So I don't think that there's too many general managers that'll be hired that'll want to keep Mike Vrabel on as the head coach. So I would not be surprised. He may stay on for one more year, but there's going to be friction.
Yeah, I believe that to be the case. What do you think down in Arizona? Cliff Kingsbury was fired. I don't have a list or anything. Nothing's been released by the Cardinals as of yet as to who's candidates for that job. Would you take that job?
Yeah, I think it's a good job. I think the problem was that, when the quarterback got hurt, I don't even think he'll be ready. Kyler Murray won't even be ready for the start of next season. They got an ACL and an MCL.
Oh,
and
wow. Both of them.
So I don't even know how that's going to affect his productivity as a quarterback. I think a lot of things that made him effective was his mobility, and with that kind of injury, I don't know how mobile he'll be. So, but I mean, man, listen, it's beautiful. You know for yourself, you're a traveling man. Phoenix is a beautiful place.
Oh,
it's a growing city.
Absolutely. And they have a dome place to play, and you don't have to stand out in the cold. I'd be there in 5 minutes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
You know?
So, and I think that they was very patient with Kingsbury. They were very patient. So they showed me enough that if I get in there and show good work ethic and start making some improvements, that I could have a job for enough years to turn that program around.
Yeah, well, they need to get somebody, like you said, a really good offensive coordinator mind to work with Kyler Murray, or a quarterback's coach or something as their head coach, or get a decent head coach down there. Again, I haven't heard anything. I don't know who they're looking at. Nothing's been said yet. It's not set in stone. Of course, it's only, one day. Black Monday was yesterday. So, I guess Arizona needs some time, just like mediocre Mike, just to figure out what they're going to do with some of these coaches, or what they're going to do down there. All right, let's get into
because the main thing too is a lot of times, man, you can't talk to these guys that's already in the playoffs, and so that may be a guy that's on your wish list is one of these coaches that's assistant coach for one of these playoff teams. So that could take a real long time to unfold, depending on how far the team goes into the playoffs.
Right, exactly. Yeah, they have to ask permission, and then they have to wait, and maybe waiting too long might hurt them, because that person might not even want to go, or whatever. I don't know, but we're going to find out down the road what's going to happen there. Let's talk about Pitt football real quick. Smokin' Jim, 9-4 record. I have egg on my face. I was the one who said that they were going to get blown out by UCLA, and I was wrong. And, unlike some of our other media colleagues in this town, Smokin' Jim, and you know it and I know it, I'm not afraid to admit I was wrong. Okay, so here we are. I was wrong. I have egg on my face. Okay, and, I said this on a TV show. I haven't been able to say it here on the podcast edition of Sports Corner here every Tuesday night at 8:30 with myself and Smokin' Jim Frazier. The first time in a long time, Pitt has won 20 games in 2 seasons. What do you think? I know I heard Jim Ellenbogen tonight talk about how Pitt is still going to be, a mediocre team with Pat Narduzzi, 8 wins here, 9 wins there, bowl game here, lose another one or whatever. What do you think?
Well, before I answer that, let me just go back for a little ways. What was grossly omitted when you read through all the possible head coaching candidates?
Right.
Do you know what was missing?
Who? Oh, Eric Bieniemy.
No, he would be a bust. But yeah, that was off. But there was not one single mention of a Pittsburgh
Steeler assistant.
coach.
Exactly.
This is a staff that is not respected by no team in the National Football League. Bill Cowers had 8 head coaches off his staff. Coach Noel had a number of head coaches off his staff.
Yes.
And there's not a high school team that would hire a coach from a Tomlin team.
Hey, you know what? You know the prison that Paul Cruz from The Longest Yard? I heard they'll hire one of them as a head coach there. They can head coach the Mean Machine.
They can't even he can't even get nobody to get a token interview for a head coaching
That's
job.
Right. That's right. You're right.
But I have to disagree with the Guns Jim from Al Levine's show. I don't think that 8 or 9 wins is mediocre in college football.
Right.
Especially in a program like Pitt that was almost a 1AA school.
Yes. Yeah.
Whether you like Narduzzi or not, I don't like him.
I don't either.
But you have to give him his props the last couple of years. They've been winning.
Credit for this year.
He's he looks like he's going to bring in another pretty good quarterback next year. And let's see what happens. But 8-9 wins to me is not mediocre for a team like Pitt.
Right. Yeah, I know. He was talking about that tonight. And, I had always said that Pitt hasn't been prominent since Jackie Sherrill, and I call it the Jackie Sherrill curse, because right after he left, they were never prominent after that. And Dan Marino even came out and admitted it, that once Jackie Sherrill left, they were, they had Foge Fazio, who I had the unfortunate, I delivered his flowers to his house when he died. And I had to deliver the flowers for his funeral, and I really kind of felt bad. And he went to school with my grandmother, so I knew a lot about Foge Fazio. My grandmother told me some stories about when they were in school together, and but Foge, and then they had Mike Godfrey, and then they had Paul Hackett, and then they had the second time around Johnny Majors thing there where they lost 72-0, and then
I was at that game.
Oh, were you at that game? Oh my gosh!
Yeah, I was there.
And then how about it? The first year he's the coach, they beat Washington State, and he goes, "Oh, we're going to a bowl game this year. We might even make it to the national championship. We beat Washington State. Oh my!" You know what I mean? And then after that, when they won one game, they beat Temple by 1 point. So a lousy Temple team, and they made them score 52 points on them. So, Pitt, that was the biggest downfall for Pitt. And then, not my fault, Wald had him up there a little bit. You know what I mean? And then, he got caught messing around on his wife, and they fired him. So,
wow.
I don't know if you know about that. Did you hear that story? That's the real reason why Pitt fired him.
No, I didn't. I'm glad you told me. I was wondering why he got fired.
Yeah, that's why he got fired. I'm going to tell you what happened. He was I guess messing around. He was messing around with somebody in the athletic department behind his wife's back, cheating on his wife.
Wow.
They went to this coaching thing. You know how they have these college coaching conventions or whatever, right?
Uh-huh.
And then this dummy takes her with him. And then what happens is they see him on TV. The news here was like, "Oh, Coach Walt Harris, and he's holding her hand in the footage." And the wife saw it. They said his last 2 years there, all this drama, his wife would show up at the Southside facility, and they would have big domestic arguments right out in the middle of the field, and they couldn't get practice in. I heard this story, and I tell you what, I sticking to it from what I know. Then he went to Stanford, and they only paid him $500,000 to coach down there. Joe Walsh was the Bill Walsh was their athletic director there, and he hired him because he worked for Bill Walsh in the past. Okay, So he hired him down at Stanford. They didn't do anything down there, and ever since then he's been coaching high school for Fox Chapel. His son was playing for Fox Chapel. He was coaching there, and then last time I saw him, I was at the spring game in 2018. And him and Johnny Majors were coaching on opposite sides before Johnny Majors died in the spring game. They were honorary coaches. And he still looks pretty good for his age. He's 72 years old now. He looks pretty good. So, I mean,
Well, what somebody told me that what happened when he got fired. Did you hear what he had said when he got fired?
No, I didn't hear it.
It's not my fault. It's not my fault.
It's not my fault. Well, yeah. Because he would always say that in his press conferences, Smokin' Jim. It was obvious. He'd go, "Oh, no, that wasn't my fault. Oh, the play calling was so bad. Oh, that wasn't my fault." You know what I mean? Yeah. Oh, man, I tell you, some of them games that he lost. Oh, my gosh. Wow. All right. Let me see here. Nick Patty weighing his options. Said he's not sure if he's going to go to another college and play. He has one more year of eligibility left. He may just go away in the sunset. He was asked that by a national reporter, and he told the national reporter he has to weigh his options. Anyway,
what would you do if you was Patty?
I probably would weigh my options and go bye-byes. Because what do you got? 1 year left. You're going to go somewhere, and who knows, you know. But then again, he might go somewhere like Delaware, like Flacco did, or like Ben DiNucci went to James Madison and broke records there. He might just do that and end up in the NFL like Ben DiNucci and Flacco and all that. You know what I'm saying? You know, so who knows? He might go to Robert Morris and take Robert Morris to a championship. You never know. I mean,
you know what I would do? You know what I would do?
What's that?
And, you know, each situation is different.
Right.
Obviously.
Right.
But if I was Patty, I would play for Pitt one more year and pick up another free degree. I mean, man, you can almost be a lawyer coming out of school with all these free years, man.
Right.
That's what I would do, man. Hang out with my teammates one more year and get into a couple of games, you know, mop up time or whatever.
Yep.
And because, I already made my mark. He won that bowl game.
Right.
He made his mark. That'd be nice to go out that way. But, man, free education, these kids don't realize what a free education is. I don't know if you remember Dennis Briggs.
Yes.
When he played for Pitt.
Yes, I do remember him.
He was a two-time captain.
Right.
He wasn't that great of a player as far as going to the NFL.
Yeah.
But he graduated with a master's degree, and he got a job in banking, and his first salary was $89,000 a year.
Wow.
$89,000 a year, man.
Wow.
Man, get that free education with no student loans.
Right.
You take a guy like Nick Callis that went to a school like Waynesburg, and he has to pay back over $100,000 in student loans, man.
Jeez.
You know what I mean?
Wow.
So
I didn't realize he was in that. I didn't realize it was that bad with him. I didn't know that.
Yeah. I mean, that's not just him. You know, that's the way of the college students, man.
Oh,
and now these athletes don't take advantage of that.
Right.
You know what I mean? I didn't as an athlete. I didn't take advantage of it, man. To be able to have no student loans and start off making $89,000 a year.
Yes.
Oh man, you're winning.
You're winning. Yeah,
Woo.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, players going to the NFL for Pitt. Izzy Abanikanda. Where do you see him in the draft?
It's up in the air. He's still raw, man. He's still raw. I definitely would not have come out if I was him. I'd have went back for another year. He's afraid of injuries, but he may be able, with a good agent, he has to do very, very well at the combines.
Right.
He's fast, but he got to run fast at the combines, number one. But I think the best scenario would be a third-round pick.
Right.
Now, Curtis Martin went in the third round, so I mean, you could do well as a third-round pick. But I just see, I mean, he came on so much last year because he was so raw.
Mm-hmm.
But I would not have. I'd have went back and made sure I got my degree if I was him. But that's just me. Like I said, if every individual, you know, he don't want to take a chance on getting injured or whatever. But I just see a very raw running back. How about you? How do you see it?
I've been told by some, what they call experts, that he's probably going to go in the second to third or fourth round.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
That's where they have him right now.
Okay.
But that doesn't base it on a combine. He might have a bad combine. But if he has a good
Yeah.
combine, his stock could go up. It all depends. You might get a team out there that might take him in the first round that don't know how to draft properly, or you know what I mean, or is desperate for a running back, and they see him sitting there and they go, "Oh yeah, there's Izzy." You know what I mean? We've seen that happen many times.
Well, I seen a preseason draft booklet, and when Paris Ford was going into his junior year at Pitt,
right,
which would have been a senior year because he got redshirted a year.
Right.
And he was picked to go number 15th in the first round. Because don't forget, he made All-American.
All-American, yes. Yeah.
And he was a ball hawk, and he was a hitter, and he was a leader of the defense.
Yes.
Well, that next year was the year of the COVID.
Right.
So halfway through the season, he quit on his team to concentrate on the NFL. And then when it came time, he didn't get invited to the combine.
Right.
But when Pitt had their pro day, he only ran like a 4.840.
Ooh.
Which is super slow. You know, you can see on films he's 4.5 guy.
Right.
And he had to end up walking on to the Rams. He got cut. But then he went to the XFL, one of those leagues.
He went to the USFL. He was in the USFL.
Yeah, and so he played a little bit there. But look at all the money it cost him by, number one, coming out early and quitting on your team. Number two, so sometimes life is about the decisions you make, man. Who knows,
Okay, here's another name here. He just declared for the NFL. He was going to stay another year. Jarrett Wayne. Now, you have all these people calling our fellow media colleagues talk shows and saying, why don't you sign Jarrett Wayne because he played with Kenny Pickett? Why don't the Steelers draft Jarrett Wayne? What do you think?
Who's Jarrett Wayne?
He's the wide receiver for Pitt, number 5. Remember him?
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, I do now.
Yeah.
Okay. Took me a second. No. No.
But do you hear these people? I mean, it's like, you know what I mean? Deslin Alexander, good defensive lineman. These guys from Pitt, I think most of them are going to go late rounds. Gabe Hoy. Gabe Hoy will be lucky if he even gets signed by any team. He was horrible. I mean, he was injured a lot his whole career. Don't worry, Lori Hoyer will make a phone call. So, but from Channel 11 News, that's her son. So she'll make a phone call. All right. So Vossier Dennis, I see him maybe in the second round. He's a good linebacker. Was leading tackler for Pitt. Didn't get hurt that much. What do you think?
Oh, man, what a great name, man. Jeez, what a great name. He was team captain. He had that thing on his elbow all year long. But he was a hitter, always around the ball. I've never seen him as a second round pick.
What do you think, third or fourth?
Maybe third or fourth, but who knows? Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? Because he does have the name. Like I said, I don't know what these teams are going to do. I just do my own evaluation of where I would draft the guy.
No, that's why I was asking you what you thought. I think of all 5 of them, I think 4 of them are probably, other than Gabe Hoy. I don't see Gabe Hoy getting drafted. I don't even think he'll even be signed as a free agent. If he is, he'll probably last one preseason game and get cut and might not even make it there. So, but anyway.
I always mark a guy down a little bit if he doesn't play in a bowl game.
Yeah.
That when I was coming along, looking at the guys who played, like the Bill Fralics and all those guys, they always look forward to a bowl game. They wanted to play in a bowl game. They wanted to make it to a decent bowl game. That was a big thing. And these kids don't feel that way anymore. There's nothing that would stop me from playing with my teammates.
Right.
I just can't see not playing. I just can't see not wanting to play with your teammates.
That's why I was unhappy with Kenny Pickett. I thought he should have played in that bowl game last year. I think we could have won if he did. He was up in the in the press box. I saw him eating French fries. Okay, and he had a headset on. Okay, all right. So and I was frustrated because Nick Patty got hurt, and then they had to bring in that Davis Bevel or whatever his name is. He moved on. They had to bring him in, and he hardly ever played. So here we are. Now we're stuck. And I blame the NCAA for this, Smokin' Jim, because I'm going to explain something to you. I think that they shouldn't be no college or any university should be allowed to, if they're going to participate in a bowl game, the coach can't leave. All right, until after the bowl game. I think that these players shouldn't be allowed to transfer until after the bowl game. The NCAA has to stop kissing the butt of these players. It has to stop. They need to start cracking the whip. Make them stay 4 years. Make them play in bowl games. And then after the bowl game's over, they can do whatever they want. They want to go in the transfer portal or whatever, just leaving after 2 years. And you know what I mean? These coaches like Cincinnati's Luke Fickell, he went to Wisconsin, and the interim coach had to coach down there. Louisville, none of these guys should be allowed to do any of this until the bowl season's over. That is when the complete season is over if your team's in a bowl game. Okay? And I think the NCAA needs to crack down on a lot of this stuff, and they're not going to, because it's all about money, and you know it and I know it. And, as long as the NCAA is making money and, they got all the universities going, well, we want to make money. It's like a racket. It's like a business. It's like anything else anymore. So, I mean, that's the way I see it, as they say, So, all right, Smokin' Jim, recruited from the transfer portal, Phil Jerkovic, we know he's going to be here. I like this Donovan McMillan from Florida. He's a wide receiver. I think he's going to make big plays. It's good to see him. And I got one for you. He's from Gateway. Derek Davis.
He's a beast.
Yeah, running back from LSU. What do you think about this Derek Davis? You should know a lot about him.
Well, he's converted to defensive back in college. He was a great high school running back and defensive back, but he's going to play defensive back. I'm surprised unless he transfers back to running back. But for LSU, he played defensive back. But I tell you what, man, he'll put you in the mind of number 12 that was out there. What's it, Devonshire or whatever?
Yeah. MK Devonshire. Yes.
Yeah. He's a guy that can return punts and kickoffs for you. He'll start immediately as a defensive back, and he could be a great running back too. But I believe he went to college. He played the last couple of years as defensive back. I don't think he'll switch back to running back. But immediate starter.
Yeah, we have too much depth. Pitt has a lot of depth at running back anyway. They have Hammond, and they have a couple guys coming in the recruiting end. He's used to being recruited because we recruited him the Gateway when he was in 9th grade. So we recruit at Gateway, brother. That's it.
we give you an address.
That's it. Smokin' Jim, I'm going to give you some what kind of final thoughts do you have before we wrap up?
I don't have any. I think we talked about everything, man. It was a great show, brother.
Thank you very much. We had to extend it a little bit tonight. I had a lot to talk about, as we always do. It was nice to have Avi Greenwald on again. I want to thank him for being on, talking about what's going on down in Florida with with those teams down there. I forgot to ask him about Florida State. Hey, you know what? Luther was wrong. He said Mike Norvell wouldn't make it in Florida State. Look where they went this year.
Hello.
Yep. Are you still? Yeah, exactly. Remember he said last year, oh, Mike Norvell, he stinks. Oh, he's terrible. Florida State will never go anywhere. Well, look where they are now.
Remember that?
Yeah, huh?
I remember that.
Yeah. So, but anyway, so I want to apologize for Saturday, 5 p.m. everybody on PCTV. Our show was not on, PCTV was having technical problems. They didn't get it worked out till Monday. No shows were on. We were not on Saturday. I apologize for that. TV station had some technical issues, and I apologize for that. Don't forget, next Tuesday, 8:30, we're here for Sports Corner, myself, Smokin, Jim Frazier. But the key is tomorrow night, Talking Wrestling, 7:30. I'll tell you what, Smokin, Jim, this show, I think, is going to be more better than the one we did last week. Wait till you see the information I have for tomorrow. Oh, my gosh. This Vince McMahon stuff. Oh, my. You should hear this stuff that's out there. And I'll tell you tomorrow. And everybody tune in tomorrow night, Talking Wrestling. Man, I got some stuff for you about Vince McMahon. Will make your head spin about the rumors of what's going on. And again, Smokin' Jim, I told you, and I told you, and I told you, and I said this on Wrestle Talk last Thursday. Stockholders are important people when it comes to public companies. And now Vince McMahon's trying to sell the company to get away from the stockholders, because now the stockholders don't want him involved in any creative stuff. And there's a big fight going on, a big rift. We'll talk about it tomorrow night, 7:30, right here, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Twitter, our 4 platforms. I am Ralph Williams. This is Smokin' Jim Frazier. It's been a pleasure being here with you tonight. Everybody have a good night. Smokin' Jim, you have a good one as well, and be safe. Thank you.